Okay, so in this video, just really quickly, I want to touch on the biggest misunderstanding in regards to gang banging. In terms of gang banging, I'm somewhat of an expert, having researched it for many years, having hung out with thugs when I was younger, and so on and so forth. So the biggest misunderstanding has to do with the Lex Luthor effect. Okay, gangs in many ways are the most reasonable position to go to for some types of people, for certain types of people. For example, you're not going to change the world in the Lex Luthor system, right? People who are part of the social norm structure of the system are part of Lex Luthor's infrastructure, okay? And you're not going to bring moral precision when there's a bunch of Lex Luthor corporate heads that run the corporations and the state and the social norms of the culture. So in order to kind of bring change, you need to group together in some form or fashion. Now, because of the way people interact with each other, you're not going to bring change by just saying, hey, you're talking to somebody and saying, hey, let me talk to somebody else. I've tried that many times. It doesn't work because of the way people think, because of their social norm fanaticism. They're in a sort of trickle-down Lex Luthor culture. And they refuse to leave the social norms of those cultures. They refuse to transcend. Whereas gang members, though they're doing the wrong thing, they have already left the mainstream society. So unless you leave the box and try to reason with a group like that, you have no chance of changing anything. Okay? Political groups are simply run by the corporate state. Left, right, middle. Cults are just some kind of military industrial complex spawn. But historically, when I was younger, not anymore, not so much anymore. Nowadays, gang members are just corporate sponsored idiots. But when I was younger, okay, there was some semblance of revolution, of uncontrolled revolution. You know what I'm saying? When we see with the Crip word, it says community revolution in progress. Okay? It's not that anymore. But when I was younger, it was that to some degree. There was narcissists who would just want money and women. There's people who are psychopaths, but there's also people who have compassion and wanted to make the world better, especially their community. So this is why America and the world is doomed, because they've bred a certain way, because they think a certain way, because there's no possibility for them to travel a moral path after I'm gone, because they all committed themselves to the social norm structure of the state and being some kind of failed hermit at best. A monk has withdrawn, therefore they didn't respond. Responsibility. Responsibility. No response is not taking responsibility for being on this planet and needing to play your part in making it a better place. So when all is said and done, because of the withdrawal effect and the Lex Luthor effect, the world is done. Again, that's the corporate structure of the corporate state, the countless corporate heads and investors, and the people withdrawing who aren't taking responsibility for taking up air and food and space on this planet and being part of the human race, and they're supposed to be part of the solution, which is the soul you shun. Okay, the true King of Kings, the natural alpha. So the only place you could possibly find the natural alpha is in a movement to try to make it better. And you wouldn't find the natural alpha in the corporate state or the military or the police or some American martial arts group. They have to be in a group that's actually uncontrolled. And because all the groups that are allowed are controlled, the situation is hopeless. Therefore, no decent person would reproduce, because no decent person agrees to be evil and to reproduce evil. Decent people insist on that which is morally precise. They don't meet halfway. They don't meet 3/4 of the way. They insist on what is morally precise. If they cannot live that, they lost their humanity. Okay, and in that case, it's over for that person if they refuse to find their humanity in the moral order of things. So to kind of recap what I said, remember they're changing my voice, trying to confuse you. I'm not saying that people should join gangs. I'm saying that every group is doing something wrong. And those groups that are outcasted are closer to right. They're still wrong, but they're closer to right. So where would you go to find moral precision? These days, you're not going to find it in the streets, in the gangs and so on. You're not going to find it in the corporations. You're not going to find it in these liberal or conservative or libertarian or cult movements. Okay? It's just me. And that's why, that's why I'm right to insist that people submit to moral precision, because they're submitting to something. Okay, they've committed themselves to being a dumbass, or to being a dumbass working for the state or whatever. They've committed themselves to something. What is it? If it's not universal pinpoint and moral precision, then they've committed themselves to being wrong and just trying to survive in a life that's short, where they're going to die anyway. If your life is short and you're going to die anyway, why live a long life of an evil person? Long relative to a shorter life. Why not commit yourself to moral precision? Okay, so the picture I chose for the screen is Lex Luthor versus Dr. Doom, which is the right-left middle paradigm. The middle is just another goon, Magneto or something. So it's like, Lex Luthor versus Dr. Doom versus Magneto. Okay? It's stupid to choose any of those paths. There's a difference between being nice and being righteous. There's a difference between being right and accepting the consequences, and accepting the lesser of two evils in your mind so you can prolong your life. You see what I'm saying? So no one can argue that their philosophy is better because it's not morally precise, and mine is. Okay? They've decided, like people who are afraid to do what's right, to accept the lesser of the evils and to prolong their life. And that's a pitiful and evil and selfish decision to make, which puts them on the spectrum of narcissism. Right? They talk about malignant narcissists, grandiose narcissists, and covert narcissists, okay, and communal narcissists. They're on the spectrum of narcissism, okay? And being narcissistic at all is not acceptable. It's evil. So when we see, that Dr. Ramani said that it was 10 to 15% of people are obvious narcissists, I would argue that well over 99% of people are on the spectrum of narcissists. You see what I'm saying? How can they, who are obvious narcissists, who have attached themselves to the state to the point where they're a psychiatrist, team up with people who are obvious and people who are on the spectrum and tell the person whose argument is moral precision when they have no viable counter-argument? How can they then say that there's something wrong with me? They've chosen to commit themselves to evil. So whatever's going on in people's brain function, the output is a symptom of a problem with their brain function and their mental state. Where the output of my brain function is an insistence on moral precision. So therefore my brain function is better, right? It's better than them, right? Good and better. Where their brain function is diseased. It's a disease, it's a spiritual plague, it's a mental plague, it's a moral plague, it's a sexually immoral plague that their state of existence is propounding and conveying and insisting on by their actions, which speak louder than words.